In camera. So hello. Ah,
There we go.
there we are.
I'm so bright.
You are so bright. I am so bright. Good evening, everybody. Well, good evening, Lawrence.
It's more than Lawrence there.
Oh, is it? Well, good evening, everybody. Then
I have no idea who else is on.
welcome to
Okay,
the
hold on, let me check.
Zwaardkring Martial Arts Academy
I have no idea
stream,
who
live
this is.
stream, first live stream. Woo! I think. Isn't that right, Farhan?
Our first live stream?
Yes. Well, if you don't count the testing that we've done.
Oh, that's true.
All right. So,
Hold on.
I'm holding
Your
on.
second camera is a bit low.
My second camera is a bit low. That one?
The one off to your left.
One off to my left. That's my webcam.
Yep. Your webcam. Not this
Okay.
one.
I'll raise it up a little.
Angle it up a bit more.
Sort. Come on. Is this better?
Step back.
Well, this is the spot I need to stand on for my main
Yes,
cam.
much better.
All right, fantastic.
Better.
Technical problems and stuff like that. Oh my God, I'm going to have to calibrate this every time.
Yeah, we need to do something.
Like I need to find the
There's
solution.
a street light off to your right that's looking directly into the camera.
Street light off to my right.
Your right. You're looking to your left.
Yeah, I know, but I'm looking at my webcam right now.
It's right behind you now.
Right behind. That's just my lamp. That's just my lamp. When I turn this off, everything will go dark. So we're gonna have to deal with that.
Oh well.
Like I'll need to set up some spotlights, and then get the lighting fine. We're gonna have to deal with the lighting, all right?
Faris is having connection issues. He can't see. He can't watch anything.
Well, that's hardly our fault now, is it?
It's what happens when you escape to Terengganu, Kuantan.
Like on the other side of Malaysia.
Yep, where they don't have Unify.
Right. But can I see names of who is connected?
You can see usernames. I have no idea who these people are.
All right.
Faris is using his real name. I know who Lawrence is.
Okay.
I have no idea who these
Never mind.
people are.
Let's just get started. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the official Zwaardkring's first live stream, where we're going to be doing stuff. What kind of stuff? Well, sword fighting stuff, because we're going to be doing historical European martial arts. I don't know. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. So, in case you don't know me, my name is Sasha Dijkshorn, and I am the historical European martial arts instructor of the Zwaardkring Martial Arts Academy in Malaysia. And we practice sword fighting, European sword fighting with swords, like the knights used to do. There's a lot of different kinds of HEMA, so if you're in the know, then we practice primarily Ringeck, Sigmund Ringeck's treatise, which goes about the longsword primarily, and we dabble in other kinds of weapons, such as poleaxe, dagger, sword and shield a lot, and a lot of messing about with other weapons and stuff like that. During these streams, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be discussing some basic exercises that you can do if you're interested in learning sword fighting. So we aim to educate, and we want to do some entertaining stuff as well, but that will be mostly accidental, I think. Not sure if I can be entertaining on purpose yet. So, yeah, today we wanted to start with the idea that whomever is watching this is, other than the people we know, is that they're not familiar with historical European martial arts. So, we've got to begin from the beginning, starting with the basics. But before we do that, before we can start with the basics, even before that, if you want to learn how to do sword fighting and you're using my streams, that's fine. You'll need some sort of armament, some sort of sword to swing around. I do not recommend buying a steel sword right away. I especially do not recommend using any display swords that you might have. These are notoriously fragile. What I do recommend for beginners is a good old-fashioned stick. It's not perfect and in many ways, but at the same time, it works really well as an early substitute for swords. So get yourself a broomstick, broom handle, and when you hold it, it should reach to about your ear. When you hold it like a sword, it should reach to about your ear. Or if you stand it next to you, it should reach to about your hip height. I don't know. Can they see this, Farhan?
Yep.
Am I doing this correct? Okay.
If I want to chime in, there's also another alternative you can use for a sword. You get a hammer.
A hammer, yes.
It doesn't have the length, but it does have some weight. It's weighted towards the end, so it feels more like a sword. It's short, so that you can swing it in your house without hitting and destroying things.
That is a terrible idea. Beginning people swinging hammers inside their house, I'm not sure where you're going.
Yeah, but it's short, so you won't hit anything.
Find some open space where you can swing stuff around, because you will hit stuff and you will break stuff.
Or you can use something like this.
Right. By the way, I haven't introduced the person on the other side yet. This is Farhan. He is my assistant instructor, and due to the lockdowns because of the COVIDs, he is on the other side, and he's just here to chime in and be bothering.
Yes, with tiny swords.
With tiny swords.
Parrying daggers, yes.
Parrying daggers. Right? No. I recommend, like, a hammer. Okay, sure, if you think that's a smart idea, but I recommend a good old stick that you have some space to swing in. All right, so don't swing it inside your house. That's a terrible place to start. Swing it outside, outdoors. Find a nice grassy field. Find a backyard. Like, my backyard is tiny. It's literally what you see. This is my backyard. So that's what I can use. Let's see. But yes, so once you've found your swinging material, whatever you end up choosing, hammer or stick, then we must know how to hold it. So your dominant hand goes just below the cross guard. If you have a stick, just imagine that you have a cross guard. Hold on, let me just. So your right hand goes at about, and then you have plenty of space with your left hand to go underneath it. On an actual sword, you'd have a cross guard you can place it under, and then your left hand goes at the pommel at the bottom. These two places here. With the stick, just hold your hands with your left hand at the bottom of the stick and your right hand somewhat above it, with about maybe a hand's width in between, that you can swing the stick around with some force. So yeah, I'll be demonstrating what we call the 8 basic strikes. I'm sure that we're very entertaining, but you didn't come here to be entertained. You came here to sword fight, or maybe you did come here to be entertained, and then I'm rambling. So the 8 basic strikes are the basics for sword fighting, and we build off a lot of that. So Ringeck actually says how we should do this. He says with your left foot forward and with your right foot back, you hold your sword at the shoulder, and it's going straight up. You want to keep your sword at your shoulder. And the first cut that we're going to be doing is a diagonal cut downward, and it's aimed at the neck. So from here, when you cut, it's not simply like that. You got to take a step forward, like that. So now I'll demonstrate it a few times from a few different angles, so you can get a feel for what that looks like. And if you notice, my sword, when I end my cut, my sword is pointing forward towards my opponent. And so if I do it from sideways, My sword is pointing forward. See, can I hit Farhan? No. Sword fighting through the internet still doesn't work.
Haven't killed me yet.
No, I've tried though, I've tried. Here, and from the other side. Here. And as you can see, every time I cut, I end my cut with my sword pointing forward. I step forward, and my sword ends pointing forward. Farhan, why is this?
Well, don't ask me, man. I'm just here to chime in.
You're my assistant instructor. You should know this.
Oh yes. Basically, it's to continually present a threat. We call it the system of laying on or ansetzen, setting on. Setting on, which is you're setting your point onto your target. It has the effect of presenting a threat if you miss. It also has the effect of putting your crossguard in the right position to protect your arms and your body by closing off a line at the end of your cut. So
Ah,
it's very important that you maintain this position unless you have a plan, unless you're trying to draw your opponent in. So yeah.
exactly, precisely that. Yes. What Farhan means by presenting a threat is that I point my point forward, and if my opponent comes too close and he doesn't do anything against my point, I can simply just thrust forward and kill my opponent. So my opponent needs to act against my point first because I've presented a threat. He needs to do something against my point first before he can do something against me, which is fine because that's extra time for me to react. Right, so cut one is from the right shoulder, and you may have already seen me doing it, but cut two comes from the left shoulder. It's the exact same kind of cut, a diagonal cut downward, but it comes from the left. So you can make this into a little 1-2 step, where one, you cut from the right, and now my right foot is forward, so now I can simply bring my sword to my left shoulder and cut down from the left. And again, right, and from to my left shoulder, and then left. Show it from the other side. Right, then left. After this, right, go ahead, practice this for like, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. Then, after these two cuts, we bring our sword down to our leg in sort of this guard. And from here, I can make an upwards cut. So, looking at this, I do cut one, I do cut two, and then bring my sword down to my leg, and then can do cut three. I'm going to step backwards because I don't have any more space stepping forwards, but three, I make an upwards cut. And again, like with cut one and cut two, I end my sword on my opponent. But this time I'm holding my sword next to my head. So from here, upwards cut, there, and then pull your sword back to keep your hand safe. Hold on. Now, so three, and as you may guess, cut four comes down from the other side. So again, I lower my sword next to my body, and I can cut up. Oh, you can't see that one, so I'll need to do it from here. Cut up, and then I end here. Pull my hands back, keep them safe. So, three and four. Do it the other way. Three and four. Anything to say about the upwards cuts, Farhan?
Oh, I've got many things to say about the upwards cuts. One thing that I found a lot of newbies have trouble with the upwards cut is that they are not sure which edge to cut with. They always end up cutting with the short
False
edge. Yeah, the
Like,
short edge. Come on, we do German sword fighting.
okay, fine.
So they always end up doing like a golf swing with the short edge, and that's not what we want to achieve here.
No, that doesn't work.
Yeah, so the mechanics of what you're trying to think about when you're doing an Unterhau, cut from below, the cuts 3 and 4. If you allow me to use this tiny sword, this tiny dagger to demonstrate, is that
Should I
people
enlarge your
try to turn
screen
their
for a moment?
yep, people try to turn their wrists as they cut, and that's how they end up with the short edge leading. What you want to do with an Unterhau is to lock the wrist in position. Let's slide back a bit. Is to lock the wrist in position as you come up. So your wrist doesn't move when you're making the cut. In fact, your arm doesn't move. What moves is your torso. Your arms are just extended out, and your shoulders and your torso brings the cut up from below. In fact, it's helpful to think that your arms are locked in place for the entire motion. It's very unlike the Oberhau, which the Oberhau requires a lot more movement in the arm. The Unterhaus, the cuts from below, don't.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
All right, very good. All right. So yeah, Unterhaus. They are cuts from below. So what you get is you get the first 4 cuts, and you can do them in sequence. You can do 1 and then 2 from above, bring your sword down, and then 3 and 4 from below. After that, we generally follow up with 5 and 6, which are the so-called Mittelhaus. So after cut 4, I end up in this position where my hands are crossed on my right side, and we make a horizontal cut through the middle. Horizontal cut. And then again, every time you set your tip on your enemy, present a threat. It's just cut, present threat, cut, present threat. And every time after every cut, I pull my hands back, because when I extend my hands like this, that's great for momentum and reach. But once my hands stop moving, they become very vulnerable, because somebody can cut them. So I want to pull them back, pull them close to me, far away from any enemy swords that want to cut off my hand. Cut long, pull back. Cut long, pull back. You can't see me. So cut long, pull back. Cut long, pull back. And again, 5 and 6 are both horizontal cuts on from left, right, and left, respectively. So 5 is from the right, and 6 is from the left. So yeah, that's basically the first 6. And again, you can chain them all neatly together. You can say like 1 is diagonal, 2 diagonal, 3 upwards, 4 upwards, 5 horizontal, 6 horizontal, and then 7 and 8 will be the thrusts. There's 2 thrusts. There's actually many kinds of thrusts, but we focus on 2 basic thrusts, which go over the right and left. So after cut 6, I pull my sword back towards my hip, and I thrust from my hip towards someone's face, and then I bring my sword back to the hip, and I thrust forward again to someone's face. If you look at that from the side, from here, I thrust forward, and back, and forward, and back. I've always heard it that the thrust is the fastest attack, but it's also the most easily parried. So, something to think about, I guess. Like that. Good. So those are the 8 basic cuts. And again, we can chain them all together into, 8 swings. So 1 and 2 are the Oberhaus, or downward cuts. 3 and 4, Unterhaus. 5 and 6, Mittelhaus, and then pull back to hip, and thrust 7 and 8. I'll do them one more time at the other angle too. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 thrusts. Right. Basic attacks. Why do we call these basic attacks? Is because they follow a very basic flow of motion. These are attacks that are very natural. These are very natural feeling attacks. But at the same time, there's nothing special about it, about these attacks. There's nothing, they don't do anything interesting, particularly. These are very good opening attacks, and if you're good at these, you can often use them to overwhelm your enemy, but a good fencer will know many counters to each one of these.
If I could chime in for a moment, these are called basic attacks. Meyer recognizes these as basic attacks for a simple reason, in that all attacks stem from one of these 4 basic strikes. If you can do all these 4, you can do any of the follow-up attacks. You should be able to execute any of the more complex things if you know your basics. Simply because no matter what, no matter how we implement a different type of strike, no matter if I do a Zornhau, if I do a Zwaardkring, it's all a variation of a basic strike. It's still the basic attack, but slightly modified. So these 4 strikes form the basis for everything you're going to do, and it'll branch out from there.
All right. Yeah, no, you're correct. You're absolutely right. At the same time, there's an argument to be made that a Mittelhau isn't like Zornhau. Okay, fine, a little bit. The Zornhau is different than the Mittelhau, I'd say. Similar but different. And once you get into the more advanced stuff, the specifics matter. But it's fine. So, what I wanted, because I say, they don't do anything special, because I wanted to look at a technique today which sort of follows from these basic attacks, and it's actually the strikes 1 and 2, and like Frans said, slightly modified to be more effective. And we call this attack the Zornhau, because I can do that from my home. So the Zornhau, the strike of wrath, if translated from German, is a cut that is very similar to cuts 1 and 2, with the difference being the line. As you may have noticed, I have taped out lines on my floor, and these lines are to illustrate to you one point. When I do the basic attacks, you may observe that I advance straight over the line. Right? And backwards I can do. So I will always stay on the line. We call this line the line of attack. The line of attack is straightforward. I imagine my opponent also standing on the very same line. So my opponent would be standing here, and I would be standing here, and you can draw the line of attack from me to him at the same time. And this is all fine and well, but any attack over this line of attack is rather easily parried. It would be really interesting if I had a companion to show. Fine, how can I show this?
You really don't have to.
Don't have to.
We can all imagine people are just going to stand there and like,
all right,
put the sword in the way.
Yeah, put the sword in the way. So when somebody attacks me to my left shoulder, what I do, and you advance straight over the line of attack, I put my sword in the way. Right? I don't want to get hit. I don't want to get hurt. I put my sword in the way. But the angle, I can do this because the angle is fine. It's really difficult to show without a partner. So let's just move on to how to do the Zornhau. Zornhau differs from this line of attack, from this normal cut, is that the Zornhau is placed off the line of attack towards the angle from where my sword is coming. So if my sword is coming from the right, I step to the right. If my sword is coming from the left, I step to the left. So the Zornhau is from here. As you can see, I have stepped off the line of attack, but the rest is all the same. I still do ansetzen, and I still bring my sword to the line of attack. It's just that I step to the side, which is the big difference. And this gives me what's known as line advantage. Because I have stepped off the line of attack, I get an advantage. And when you do this, you should be able to hit your opponent in the head, bypassing any defense that they might have. I mean, theoretically speaking. Exceptions are there. There's always exceptions. From here. And I can do the strike from the other side as well. So now my strike is coming from the left. So I need to step to the left. To here. And the advantage of the Zornhau is that you can really put a lot of force in it. Right? You can really... Ringeck in particularly likes the Zornhau because you can really put in a lot of power and a lot of force in it without overextending your balance or overextending your sword.
I mean, you have to put a lot of power into it. It's called the wrath cut.
Right? It is called the wrath cut, the cut of wrath. So you can practice this at home as well. You can practice this at home where...
Sasha, why don't you point out how the footwork differs from a regular stepping forward in like the structure you use? Maybe that will help people who want to do it.
Okay. So what I always like to do is I put these lines on my floor for a very good reason. Any line will do. Any straight line will do. So the basic attacks always follow this line. So I always simply step forward. But as you notice, a good stance in sword fighting is where my right foot is on the right side of the line and my left foot is on the left side of the line. I always say, never during sword fighting, during the basic attacks, should my feet be either on the line, touching the line, or be on the wrong side of the line. Right to right on the right side, left on the left side, so that my foot have their own space. So when I go forward, you'll see that my right foot is always on the right side, my left foot is always on the left side. Of course, I break this rule when we do the Zornhau. So in this case, rather than stepping straight forward, I have to step diagonally to my right with my right foot. And step over here, I step there. Right? In this case, you see that my left foot has stepped over the line. Again, that's how it goes. From here to the left. In heck, you could even do this from just going straight to the right without going forward at all. But always, you have to push your sword all the way to the left of your body. Right? My sword should not be straight, because if we imagine that my opponent is standing on this intersection of lines, like on this plus intersection of lines, and I'm standing here, right? If my sword, if I point straight forward, if I attack straight forward, you'll notice that I'm not hitting my opponent. I need to hold my sword to the left. That way, I'm still striking where my opponent is supposed to be standing. Next time I need to see if I can make a target dummy or something like that. It should be easier to demonstrate then. So, step to the right. Is that what you meant, Farhan? Or?
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, gotta let people know what the footwork is, what to do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lawrence, we really should build a PEL.
We should build
a PEL.
PEL.
A striking dummy.
Ah, yes. I can look into that. I've got some PVC lying around. I can probably work with that. It's not too strong, but I'm sure PVC can at least illustrate. So, viewing from the side, here, step to the right, and you can really see. I step to the left, I step very far. You could have the line completely to your left, right? If you want to practice this at home, you can have your line. So if I have I have the line on my right hand, and both my feet are on the left side. What you can do is you can step over the line in order to get enough movement towards the right. So what you get is I step with both my feet over the line, right? And when I step back, both my feet. So now both my feet are on the right side. Now both my feet are on the left side. Of course, you've got to do this with a cut. So I'm standing with both my feet on the left side. I step, and now both my feet are on the right side. Step, both my feet are on the left side. Both my feet are on the right side. So yeah, this is the Zornhau. And the Zornhau is, interestingly, in Ringeck, the Zornhau is often described as having follow-up attacks. Ringeck himself does not say the Zornhau is the final attack or anything like that, like the attack that's supposed to hit. The Zornhau is supposed to be the basis from which you do follow-up attacks. So you're not really supposed to hit with the Zornhau, rather than you use it as a scaffolding to make your next move. Something to talk about next time, I think.
I think one way we could describe the Zornhau for people is if that your opponent's attacking you, you're using it as a defensive move. But if you're using it to attack your opponent, you're using it to displace your opponent's sword, to get your sword between yourself and your opponent's sword so that he can't react to what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. The Zornhau can be used offensively and defensively. Both work really well. So the Zornhau can be used if my opponent, and that's the nice thing. That's why I said you can do the Zornhau stepping straight to the right as well, because you got to manage your distance with your opponent. So when my opponent isn't advancing towards me because he's attacking me, I'm using the Zornhau offensively. I need to make sure I cross the distance to my opponent. So I step forward and then attack. But if my opponent is attacking me and he is coming closer to me, I don't need to step forward too close to him. So instead of that, I will step sideways. Or even if my opponent is taking super huge steps, I can even do Zornhau stepping backwards to maintain proper distance. And distance is definitely a topic that we're going to have to talk about sooner rather than later. Yeah, all the same. I think that's about what we wanted to discuss. Fran, did you want to add on anything?
I think we should just describe the basic follow-up to the Zornhau Ort.
Okay.
Or the Zornort.
Yes. All right, fine. So, Zornort. So, yeah, after I do the Zornhau, like I said, it's basically used as a scaffolding, as a starting technique to do it. Generally speaking, you don't immediately hit with your Zornhau. Instead, you engage with the bind. But because I do my ansatz, because I keep pointing my tip at my opponent, with the Zornhau, I will have likely displaced, cut his sword to the side, whether he was attacking or defending, doesn't matter. So it leaves me free to straight up thrust into his face, which is what I want to achieve, presumably. So what you do is you cut to the side, and again, I have my tip on my opponent. And from here, I can just extend my forward foot a little bit, lean forward, and thrust in. And you'll notice that my sword goes from low to high, holding it eye level. This is because then your hands won't get cut. Right? So you get Zornhau, Zornort, which is just a thrust to the face. You can also do this over left. Zornhau, Zornort. Extend your feet. I'm showing this from this side. So Zornhau, Zornort. And from the other side, maybe that's easier. Zornhau, Zornort. So sideways step, extend your step. Maybe from behind. I don't know if that helps, but Zornhau, Zornort. Sideways step, extend your step. Just doing it from all the sides, as you guys can see what it looks like. Yeah, so the Zornhau is simply, okay, I have my sword pointed at your face. I'm just going to move straight forward into your face. Yeah. Anything to add, Farn?
One thing that everyone should notice is that when Sasha does the thrust portion of the Zornort, is that he performs a lunge with his leading leg. And this tells you it's very important that when you perform the Zornhau and your sidestep, is that you don't take too big a step to the side. If you take too big a step to the side, your feet are too far apart and you cannot lunge. So you have to be careful about that side step. You have to watch. I'm making a small adjustment just to get the angle on my opponent, and I don't want to take such a huge lunging step that I now need to recover. I cannot follow up with another small adjustment. So you can see what Sasha is. When he lunges, it's a small step. And when he sidesteps, it's also a small step. You don't need big movements here.
Yes. Yeah, basically like that. That's some very good addition, yeah. Oftentimes when people take too big of a step, by the way, it's when you start seeing more linear movement. I said that when you do the basic cuts, your right foot should stay on the right foot of the right side of the line, your left foot should stay on the left foot of the line. But when you start like that, and then you make these huge steps during your cuts, you start that your feet are getting more and more towards both being on the line. In everything in sword fighting, you should not take too big a step, right? Your legs should be shoulder width apart, your feet should be shoulder width apart, and they should always be shoulder width apart. Exceptions, but generally speaking, you'll want your feet to be shoulder width apart. So for my left shoulder, I should go down to one foot, and for my right shoulder, I should go down to the other. Without, and here, even after one cut, again, right foot to right shoulder, right shoulder to right foot, left shoulder to left foot. No big steps, not necessary. If you can't reach your opponent without a big step, then you can take a small step before you take your attacking step. No need to jump in there. You'll lose your balance, you'll lose your momentum. It's not worth it. You see this with the Zornhau as well. So, small step to the side, so I can lunge. Small step to the side, so that I can lunge. Yeah, so Zornhau. Again, your hands go high when you thrust in. This is likely because my sword, the sword of my opponent, will likely be binding against me. If I keep my hands low, his sword might come over my sword. I don't want his sword to come over my sword, so I want to push my hands up. So now his sword binds really high, and he'd have to be some sort of giant to be able to get over your sword now. So you don't want that to happen. So when you thrust, you want to bring your hands to eye level. Sorry, I didn't do the Zornhau cut there. So cut, bring your hands up. Keep your head safe from your opponent's blade. Right, Fran, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so we've been at this for almost 45 minutes already.
All right.
Let you catch your breath and take questions.
All right, yes, questions. Or
Any other
comments or
questions?
remarks.
Uh,
Say that we're amazing. Say that we're awful.
well,
Say that
Faris.
Farhan is awful.
Oh no, everyone knows that, man. So Faris says Zornhau for the win.
Yes.
Alan Alfros says no, Krumpau is better.
Krumpau is best how.
So, someone's been paying attention in my class.
Please. That's almost a Zwaardkring staple.
Exactly, the Krumpau. Krumpau is best how.
Krumpau is best how.
Yeah. So basically, if you guys don't understand anything or you want Sasha to demonstrate another application for the Zornhau, let us know.
Yes.
If not,
Comment below, like, and subscribe. God, I feel so dirty.
This is your life now.
This is my life now.
Yeah. If while we're waiting for maybe people don't want to ask questions, I want to bring up a very interesting tidbit about the Zornhau and this being a Meisterhauen and everything, one of the master cuts.
Right.
In that you see it in earlier treatises, Ringeck, MS 3227A. These people recognize the five Meisterhauen, and one of the Zornhau being the Meisterhauen, the secret technique, this technique that only the masters know. But as you move on into the later Renaissance era, with Joachim Meyer, he doesn't recognize the Zornhau as a master cut. In fact, the Zornhau is considered a basic cut at that point in history. So this Zornhau has become so widespread that it's no longer a master technique. It's listen, you noob. The first thing I'm going to teach you is this.
It's how to cut properly.
Yes, this is not a master cut. This is the most basic thing you need to know. And it comes, and you can see the development of German swordsmanship from that point. Like someone came up with this thing, and it was so effective that he had to hide it from other people in some cryptic poem. And after a couple of 100 years, everyone said, you know, this is a really good technique. Everyone should use it. Literally, everyone should know about it from like the most basic idea of sword fighting.
Yeah, what can you say? The sword fighting meta changed.
Yeah, it's just everyone adopted the Zornhau as a basic cut.
Yeah, and that's probably because you see the very same thing in modern tournaments, but that's probably because once a cut gets very effective, people start looking. I mean, people start getting to know about it because if you keep beating opponents in tournaments one after the other, then people start taking notice, or in duels, or on the battlefield, or whatever. So the use of the technique spreads, but as the use of the technique spreads, people start looking at, hey, what sort of techniques will work against this technique? Right? So you start to see like counter Zornhau techniques. And then from there, you're going to say like, okay, the Zornhau becomes less popular, or in this case, very basic. And then people start looking at like new techniques that they can use to sort of replace it or replant it. It's the shift of the meta, really. But yeah, it's really interesting to see that you can, by studying these old manuscripts, you can see the progress of this concept throughout the centuries.
Yeah, I suppose it helps that the Lichtenauer method, the Lichtenauer techniques, basically became a monopoly in Germany.
Yeah, it basically became like the standard of sword fighting.
Pretty much. I mean, if it works, use it.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we're getting questions because these people don't ask questions.
Ask questions, you.
They never ask questions. Anyway, so you got any last words, and then we can wrap this up. We've been at this for almost an hour.
Yeah, I think it's a good time to wrap it up. So, yeah, if you do training by yourself,
Sasha, this camera, yes, phone camera.
Phone camera, right? Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Phone camera. Right? Yeah. So, if you're doing training by yourself, then use your common sense, right? Don't swing where anything is valuable and or vulnerable. Do not blame us if you break anything. And practice these swings. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed our little stream. I hope that this is a format that can take off. So, grüß dich, which is what we say when we greet each other. It's something German for I greet you. Grüß dich.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for tuning in, people.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Random dog. That's my dog. Not random.
Okay. Thanks, guys.